I hear a lot of sympathies for Donald Trump, man.
What was the whole point of getting into army?
I actually was in the division of tanks. To learn how to shoot, how to throw grenades and all of that.
You have traveled the world extensively.
I traveled the world more than the average person. Most of the things that happened in my life are coincidental. My parents did not really understand why I want to study. I was not able to lead 40 people. Eventually landed in a hospital.
What?
Right.
Let's talk about bosses for a moment.
And I've had lots of bosses, and most of them have been bad. So what is a bad boss doing? A bad boss is
there a situation where you have had to let go of a particular employee of yours?
Which I don't want to share actually. It gets toxic.
So what are the certain things that you are very mindful of when recruiting somebody?
Oh, it's a really good question. That's a really good question, Aman, because I've noticed.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Your Turn to Tell. It's a mini-series, podcast, unplugged, unfiltered conversation specifically around the subject of leadership, where I speak with corporate leaders to know more about them, their psyche, and what they do and why they do it. Our guest for today is Bathazares Arcos, who on paper is the director for e-commerce and retail across Europe, Middle East, and Africa for KAO Corporation, a global market leader in the beauty industry. Christian has managed multiple portfolios and has had tremendous success in leading teams, especially in a company like L'Oreal. But what makes him an interesting candidate for this conversation is his intense experience out of corporate. He's someone who served in the army. He was a part of national canoeing team for Germany and an avid traveler who has traveled over 60 countries worldwide. Christian was kind enough to share with us a part of his life, his learnings, his mistakes, and his opinion on various different topics. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Let's dive into it. Right, but Christian, so today is about you. What I really wanted us to start off with is the question that you asked me once. Who is Christian? Maybe we start off with Christian Arcos Balthazares?
Christian Balthazares Arcos.
Christian Balthazares Arcos.
Yeah.
Number one, the story about it. And number two, who are you?
Who is Christian?
Who is Christian? Yeah.
First of all, the last name, it's in a nutshell. I used to be married to a Mexican. And the deal we had at that point in time is that she comes to Germany and I took her last name. We divorced now. I'm in a happy relationship since 5 years, but I maintained the surname.
Okay.
So, but who is Christian? So, I'm born in the late 80s in East Berlin, and for the ones who not so fond of the history of Germany, at that point in time, Germany was still divided into West Germany and East Germany.
Before the wall collapsed.
Before the wall collapsed. So I would never say that I recognized my environment. I didn't take any notice of what is going to happen. So I was 3 to 4 years old. But for sure is that my parents and my grandparents and the environment I was raised and educated in was for sure influenced by a socialist system, right? So I would say until today, I carry values with me coming out of that political system, like community, humility, and equality, right? So fast forward, I just enjoyed the average German education in high school, average German education on university. I spent a year abroad and all of that. But what I would say is what influenced me most in my life is most probably being part of a sports club, right?
Okay.
So I had the luck to be part of a sports club with a lot of individuals of all age groups, a lot of diversity, which helped me to gain new perspectives in life. And I think that's a competitive advantage I have today when I speak about my career.
And what sports did you?
I did canoeing. I did canoeing. I did a lot of sports, judo, but where I landed eventually was canoeing and dragon boat sports.
But that's very unconventional. Like, as Germany, you're more into football, and
it's true and it's not. So Germany as a nation, we're the most successful nation in paddling sports in the Olympics, right? There's no nation that gained more medals or won more Olympic gold medals in canoeing. So, but it was just a coincidence, right?
Okay.
What it teach me to be in that sports club is to socialize, right, with other people. to read the room, to get in touch with people, to get into conversations, but also the competitive part, right? In the sports team, being in a team, you need to, let's say, I don't want to say show off, but you need to, if you want to win,
Humility. Humble.
humility, but also the will to win, right? And also what you learn in the team sport is that how to win together, but also how to lose together and how to cope with that, right? And these are qualities I often don't find in people who did not have a sports career or who did not be part, who haven't been part of
That's
a
super
sports
interesting.
club.
And I have a question. So, just taking a step back, you mentioned about your socialistic upbringing, right? Do you think, because socialism is also a lot about community,
Yeah.
do you think that might have also played a part in your brain somewhere when you went to sports in a team group and you also felt that, okay, this is where I also belong, and it was easier for you to gel in and easier for you to, as compared to somebody who is from a very individualistic mindset?
Well, I wouldn't say. No, I
Okay.
wouldn't say because I mean, in the same period where we had socialist Eastern Germany, I think Western Germany won a couple of club World Cups, right, or World Championships as a national team. So I wouldn't say that the socialist system necessarily helped me to, or is helping or creating benefits for people in their sports career. What I would just say is that I think I only got notice of the values that I carry with me when I moved to West Germany.
Okay.
Right, I'm living now in Düsseldorf in West Germany since 10 years. And in that time, I realized the differences. So I wouldn't say that the new generations in Z or Gen A, that they're still, let's say, facing differences. But I acknowledge the differences between me and people who have been socialized in the capitalist world. Let's face it, it's a capitalist world where the individual plays a stronger role, where ambition, for sure, has a stronger influence. And I would say in my circle of friends, we all share a certain, let's say, level of humility. And I think that is something that I carry with me and that helps me actually in my career. So when I look at my career, I would have never expected that I would be holding a director position in a global corporate.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that the values I carry with me from my parents, my grandparents, my uncles, my family, and all the people I was surrounded through my youth, I think that these values helped me.
But tell me about your background a little bit. Like, what's your background? Like you mentioned about your socialistic. How was the environment in the eastern side when it was under the Soviet Union, and even after that? Like, tell me more about it.
Well, when I talk to people, also my sports club, who are now, let's say, we're having the age of 60 or 70, what they tell me is that in their youth, it was never about individuality, right? Everybody was equal. It was never about to be the best. It was never about to have the best clothes, or it was never about material things, right? So it was not a value as such to have career progress or to search or to hunt for titles and big salaries, because it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't there in the socialist system. Until today in Germany, the likelihood, if you're coming from a household
right
without academic degrees, is decreasing in the last 20 years. So when you're born in Germany into a family whose parents haven't studied at a university, it is very unlikely that you climb up the social ladder. So in my environment, I had no one in my family who studied or had an academic degree or traveled or was looking beyond the table, right? Or beyond its plate. No one teach me that. No one gave me the perspective. Luck I had is that I was part of a sports club where I had these perspectives from different peers with families with academic degrees. So I got to understand that there's more than my family is suggesting me. Right? To give an example, my parents were not fond of the idea to go to an advanced high school degree. My parents did not really understand why I want to study, right? So it was very unlikely. And even after I studied, I did not really know.
And this is super interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, after I studied, I went to the army, and after that, I didn't know what to do. Right. I spent time in the army. And then I had a couple of jobs. I was cleaning. I was working in a removal company. So I was carrying furniture for people around. So
Okay.
I had a couple of jobs, and I was never able to build the confidence, right, that I could be someone having a higher role in a corporate, right? That is something that developed through the time. But it was not determined for me, I would say, right? Statistically, it's very unlikely that someone like me is progressing in career in a global corporate. It's very unlikely today.
So I think the turning point in your life was a sport. So basically,
Yeah.
from what I understand, that sports was one place that gave you an opening to the new world that you
Exactly.
saw. And it was like, okay, that's a whole other universe. So my world isn't just one world. There are multiple other universes. Maybe explore that one. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and tell me a time about your army. Like, what was the whole point of getting into army? I mean, I don't know. Germany does not have a very, known army, of course, for obvious reasons.
Yes,
But
that's true. So at that point in time, it was mandatory in Germany that young people, after finishing school with the age of 18, we had two options. Either we do some voluntary service that is to the benefit of the society, either in a hospital or a place that takes care of, let's say, disabled people. So many of my friends did that. And I actually wanted to be a policeman. So I told I didn't reject the service in the army, so I went to the army. It was a 9 month service. The first 3 months have been really tough because we actually had to go through an education military education that was designed in the 50s, designed to battle and combat the, let's say, enemy of the system, the East.
okay,
Right? So the Warsaw Pact, so to speak, right?
Right.
So I learned how to survive in the forest. I learned how to I actually was in a division of tanks. I never saw a tank though. And then after those 3 months, after you learned how to shoot, how to throw grenades and all of that, and how you learned a bit of discipline, which I have to say, in all honesty, I don't want to miss, right? Getting up at 5 in the morning, having breakfast at 5:30, really teach me again to be humble, right? But then after the 3 months, there was 6 months of just leisure time. It was not adding any value in my life. And I think a couple of years later, Germany got rid of that, let's say, service in the military.
And how old were you during this time?
19. I was 19 at that point in time. Yeah.
Okay.
But today it's not anymore in Germany. So in Germany, you don't need to have military service. You don't have to do voluntary service. But now, facing the situation, let's say, with the Ukrainian-Russian war, Germany is taking a step back.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I truly believe, it's not about the military service. I think when you look at demographics in the Western world, right, people are getting older and older. And let's say the substrata of people in a society, at least in Germany and most of the Western countries, the people who can contribute to taxes and the welfare state, that population is diminishing, right? So I would argue it would be really beneficial if everyone after school is having a voluntary service, wherever, doesn't matter where, and maybe even at the end of the career.
Wow. Then what happened after army?
So what happened after army? So the thing is, I told you that I never got taught. My parents never pushed me for something, right? They never pushed me for good grades in the school. They never pushed me to, like I said, they never pushed me to go to university. Never pushed me to have a proper job or something, right? So I would say most of the things that happened in my life are coincidental, right? I just went with the flow always. I actually didn't even know what I'm good at and where I'm bad at. But today it's different, of course. Now 20 years later, it's different. So through the sports, I had this, let's say, competitive gene in me, right? I wanted to be someone, right? Because I experienced in sport what it means and how much it means for myself to be successful, right? So the only thing that was pushing me was I wanted to be successful. So the first bigger job I took, I didn't even care what it is. So I looked for salary, I looked for company cars and all of that. So I was hired by a big German supermarket chain, right? And I had no prior experience, to be honest. I mean, in Germany, it's the education system is very theoretical, right? The average is very theoretical. You don't learn hands-on things that prepare you for life. So my first job was to supervise 6 supermarkets with 40 people. I had a company car, and at that point in time, I would say an over-average entry salary.
Okay.
What it teach me, though, is what I can't do. And at that point in time, I was not able to lead 40 people who have been on average way older than I have been. So that was an important step in my career, I would say, because at that, I took the first sincere decision in my life in that job, because I said, this is not right for me, so I quit.
You mentioned they were all older to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is a very common challenge that we also face in corporate, where you will come across a situation where you will be managing people who are older than you. What was the biggest lesson that you learned from there, and what would you have probably done different?
Well, the thing is, you can't. Age doesn't matter, first of all, right? Experience matters and competency matters.
Right.
And at that point in time, I didn't have experience. I did not have competency to lead people who are, let's say, I think some of the market supervisors have been over 50, right? And I have been 26.
Okay.
Right. So there is a clear mismatch. But I'm proud of myself that I said, this is not right for me. Yes, the money is nice, the company car is nice.
But what led to that state? Like when you were like, okay, this is too much. That one.
I was simply over demanded. I couldn't cope with the situation. And to show some vulnerability here in that first job, I eventually landed in a hospital.
What?
Right? I landed in a hospital. It was simply too much. I just collapsed.
Wow.
Yeah. So my body told me. My body told me for the first time in my life, here's a limit. And so again, I wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't like to miss it, right? That was crucial for me in my career, in my life, to understand, to create some self-awareness for me, because prior to that, I just went with the flow. So I quit, which was a hard step, because as you can imagine, still in your surroundings and how, let's say, our society works, it's all about, you have to achieve something, you have to be someone, right? You have to earn your money, and people who quit are not necessarily considered as winners, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But I was used to be a winner at that point in time. So it was a tough decision for me. So I quit, and then I looked for a new job, and deliberately looked for a job where I can really start from the bottom. So I was lucky. I found the job at a big global corporate. I started where I eventually met you.
Yeah.
Right. And where I really started from the beginning as a let's say sales representative in the field, like really visiting salons and selling them products and convincing them to sell our products. So it was really, coming from a position where you're leading 40 people and a big chunk of the business of the company, to become the capital of Germany, right?
To become a sales door-to-door salesman.
Exactly. But then in this time, being in this, let's say, lower part of the food chain, that helped me to really think of myself, to develop skills, to understand where I need support or where I can give support. And it turned out pretty well, right? Eventually, I made up the ladder in the career. I grew from there. I changed fields, went from sales to business intelligence. I've been an analyst, and I led the analyst team as a head of business intelligence. So I think in the past years, I always had a talent to choose topics. which will be the next big thing, right? At that point in time, it was data and it was business intelligence, it was reporting, right? It was really to extract insights and to fuel the business with knowledge. And after that, I was looking for the next thing, and then it was e-commerce. And I started as a sales rep in a corporate. It ended as a director for, let's say, one of the most
Prestigious companies.
And inside that company, in one of the biggest markets, the most important channels, right?
Correct.
That was another turning point for me, I have to say, because what I realized is that after the first job, I had to prove to myself that I can do it, right? Then I'm able to do it, to lead teams, to coach teams, maybe even to gain market shares and all of that, right? And all of
Yeah,
that. So
for sure.
So, and once I've done that, being in the director position later on, I realized I was just hunting titles. I was hunting salary, titles. I was hunting influence. And what I realized is there's more, right? So if that is something, and that would be my advice for everyone, every young person being in a corporate career ladder, is that these things are just temporary. And if you let them define who you are, you put yourself at risk. So then I took the next decision because I already knew how it is to quit. So it didn't take me much effort to quit again.
Okay.
Right. So I quit again this job and went on I can call it a world travel, right? I took a sabbatical where I traveled. I read a lot of books. I saw a lot of different cultures. I was hunting the world wonders. Until today, I saw all world wonders. I visited all of them.
All the world wonders
all the 7 world wonders I have seen and visited myself.
Okay.
So I realized there's so much more than just titles and salary and being someone in the job, right? Or having a win in a meeting or having the best presentation, all of that. When you're in this corporate environment, you often forget about it.
For sure. Yeah. That kind of becomes your universe because your friends are your colleagues. And technically, if you're not doing well at job, you kind of feel that you're letting your whole family down.
Yeah.
It's kind of a psyche that keeps playing back and forth inside your mind.
Yeah. Well, and now I'm again in a global corporate, right? Having again a director position and let's say having the same responsibilities or even more because it's now, let's say from a territory perspective, a wider role. But the difference is I approach it differently. I'm way more self-aware. I really know what I can do and what I can't do. And I know my limits now. But it took me 20 years to realize that.
The weirdest part of this is at one point in your life, you were filling guns, shooting rifles, and the next moment you were a door-to-door sales representative selling beauty products, and then after that you were leading teams, and then you were just in one of the 7 wonders of the world. Like how do you plan these things out? You don't plan, or you just go with your instincts?
I think it's not a conscious process.
You just get that feeling like, okay, this is the right thing to do next.
Yes, I would say yes. So I listen a lot to myself, and I learned that my body tells me a lot.
Okay, right? Yeah, from the first experience, that's what you mentioned.
Exactly. And the second time I quit a big job, and rejected a lot of salary, it was again my body was telling me that I'm not happy, and maybe it's instincts. I don't know what you call it. If you call it instincts, I don't know. Sure. But of course, everyone knows what gives you energy, right? So everyone who doesn't know what gives you energy, please find out. And traveling was always something like that. And this is maybe also coming to put it into context. So my father never left Europe. In fact, he maybe only left Germany for visiting Poland or the Netherlands. But besides that, he never left his environment, right? Coming from a family or having a heritage where traveling was not allowed. So people in the Eastern Germany, so I don't want to say that they have been unhappy, but for sure they could not leave their world, right? They could not go to the US, they could not go to all of that. So, and I think that is something inside me, and I really understand at an early age that this is triggering me. it's triggering me to experience that there's so much out there. So for that, and that for sure helped me to make the decision to put a lot of emphasis, and also, to be honest, a lot of money into traveling, right? So I learned that I work to live. While many people in the corporate world live to work, and they don't really realize it, right? So I changed that. I changed it for me, that I utilize the work to have a nice life, because also so I'm now close to 40 years old, and the instances where people pass away. So my father passed away really early. It makes you realize that life can be really short, right? And it might be that we just have this one's life, right? Maybe you see it different, but if you just have this one life, is it worth to waste it just to have a win in a meeting?
Oh, that's very deep. You have been in so many different, let's say, profession. You've been in army, you have been in stores, you have met so many different people. My question is, what, according to you, is if I put it very bluntly, is a good boss? What are the common traits that you find in bosses?
Yeah.
Let's talk about bosses for a moment.
Yeah.
Because you have been a boss yourself.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. So I was lucky to have small teams, big teams with different functions across different areas and all of that. And I've had lots of bosses, and most of them have been bad, to be honest. So there's one notion I have is, and I recall maybe 2 bosses in my life. It is, I still feel their warm hand on my shoulder, right? And I think if you think back of your bosses, you cannot say that of the many, right? Of the many. So, so what, from my point of view, let's distinguish it maybe simply. What is a bad boss doing? A bad boss is having a big ego and acting out of this ego, fueling this ego. A bad boss puts himself first, right? His success first. And I think that concept cannot be successful anymore in the world we're living in. So maybe it might have been working in the 60s or 70s, 80s, 90s, or whatever, where top-down approach was efficient. But today the world is too complex. The world is too complex that one single person can solve all problems, right? We need a collective intelligence. And I think the role of a supervisor or boss changed, right? So a good boss, from my point of view, it's less about telling people what to do. It's more about asking questions, right? So I often believe that I do it, but I don't know. So, but I see myself as a servant, right? A servant for the team. And in order to do that, you have to create certain things in a team, right? You have to establish trust. And there's this buzzword of psychological safety. You have to create alignment. But most of all, you have to empower. And you have to feel honestly happy if someone makes the next step, and you can accompany the person in this process, right? While a bad boss, to put it simply, that is just fueled by his ego, that would not primarily define his success, right? It would just think of him or herself first.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, what you mentioned, definitely ego is one definitely big aspect. I also think a bad boss is somebody who does not have, like, it's not just about ego, but also about the fear that they have of, like, okay, what are people going to think about me? What is, like, not being able to be a good time manager, not being able to manage situations.
You're right. There's one thing I forgot. The difference between an ego-driven bad boss and a good boss is, if leadership, and it is not my unique opinion, is leadership starts with yourself, right? So in my early career, I've been a very bad boss. I didn't know, really, I was not self-aware at all.
Yeah.
So I think you cannot lead a team if you're not aware of yourself.
100%.
If you don't know your limits, if you don't know where you can support and where you need support, right? And that's a big difference. While an ego-driven manager would hardly accept that he needs support, right? Would hardly accept that he fails, right?
Yes, and I think a lot of the things that managers also don't realize is that every single word that they use or that they speak has a weightage on an individual's whole day.
There is this. I read a beautiful book about it, and there's this concept of. So first of all, I mean, our brains function the same way like the brain functioned 30,000 years ago, right? We have still the same chemistry and all of that. And we people want to be happy, right? We want to be loved, we want to be praised and all of that. And I think a good boss understands that. I don't want to say that every boss has to be the most, needs to show the highest level of empathy, for instance.
Correct.
But you need to create an environment in where, let's say, the hormone of oxytocin, the love hormone, the hormone that makes us to be able to socialize.
Right.
You need to create that environment. If you don't create that environment, it gets toxic, right? And I experienced a lot of toxic environments in my life, and they're not healthy for no one. Yeah. Not healthy for the boss, not healthy for the team, right? And now it's even proven scientifically that toxic environments harm your health a lot, right? And no company, no profit-driven company should have an interest in toxic environments, right?
Sure,
so
yeah.
Culture really plays a strong role, and a good boss asks you questions and really cares for what concerns you, right? It doesn't always need to be work related, right?
Exactly, 100%. I think majority of the discussions that usually follow between a boss and his subordinate is related to different projects. But when it comes to how's everything at home, is everything settling well, it's just, maybe some do, but it's just a passing statement. They don't really care, like, okay, fine, yeah, okay. So I think that genuine interest, and we as human beings, we understand that, okay, this person is really interested, and yeah, the communication is far more simpler. That's true. What is one feedback that you have received as a manager that was like, you went like, damn, okay,
That I received.
that you received as a manager? And what is one feedback that you have given perhaps to your manager that, dude,
Well, that's a good question. I need to think about it. One feedback. Well, there was one feedback. It's not a big thing, but I don't forget it because it was so honest and so direct. So in one of my jobs, I had to create a PowerPoint slide. It was just one slide where I had to put like data on it and a narrative around it and a graph and maybe what is the key message. And I was believing that what I'm doing is okay, right? And it was for a big meeting, and I really underestimated the occasion. So the feedback of that manager on point of time was, it was she told me then, she took me aside and told me, you know what, I had to work all weekend to do this because what you delivered was not sufficient, and it was not sufficient for the occasion, for the importance of this meeting. I would have expected from you, right, that in your role that you would understand the scope of this task, right? This just comes to my mind because I never forget this. It was so direct and so honest without hurting my feelings, right?
No harsh words used.
But I can guarantee you after that, I've never done a bad slide again. And it's just, it's a PowerPoint slide. The feedback I gave, the feedback maybe, well, no, it's...
no one's watching, Christian, come on.
The feedback I think I gave, so the thing always is, and this is what lacks in a corporate world, the true conversation.
For sure.
Right? The true conversation between team or employee and boss, for instance, and vice versa. So to give a feedback from bottom to top is not easy. You need an environment for that is empowering you to do that. And I have to say, I did not often face environments where it's safe, psychological safe to give that feedback. So, but I took the chance. One of my jobs where I quit to use the last conversation to give an honest feedback to someone, which I don't want to share actually. But
which is good, which is fine.
But it's good that you remind me of something. Is that it's really important to give feedback afterwards, because I can tell you, it's really rare that, for instance, now my position that I get feedback. It's really rare. It's really rare. Yeah, that's important. So I encourage everyone to give feedback upwards.
But then to be able to take feedback is also something, right? Because
yes. But then for that you need a culture in place, right? You need a culture in place, and you have to lead by example, right? You have to lead by example. What my tactics always have been, for instance, I also had managers who never gave me feedback, so I wrote my own feedback and asked them for approval.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So okay, this is super interesting. Hi there. Just want to remind you that if you like the video, do hit like and subscribe to the channel. Ciao. Back to the conversation now.
Yeah.
You have managed a lot of people. Is there a situation where you have had to let go of a particular employee of yours, or maybe a situation where you have had to manage a challenging performance of an employee?
Of course, it always happens, right? So in a team, usually you don't come across a team usually where you just have high performance, right? And everybody is really top notch and of the curve of all talents. So you always have this mix, right? And of course, in the corporate world, it's often like that. If you lead a team, it's just about performance. It's about profit. It's about whatever, gaining market shares and growing and all of that. And of course, I had the occasions where I have been asked to increase the performance of the team, and where I might have to get rid of certain people, right? That happens. Just
a basic corporate,
just a corporate world. And to be honest, what I'm proud of until today is, I don't know if that's a quality, but I never had someone on my team quitting, right? So I'm proud of that for sure. But I also realized is the first time I had a situation where I might have had to it's a bad wording, to get rid of something, right? Or to find a different path. Let's call it to find a different path of something for someone is, I realized is that, I also read a book about it, by the way, is that real leadership starts when you have a low performing employee in your team. Leadership starts when you coach this person to be a high performing member of the team. It costs a lot of effort. It costs a lot of time, and a lot of emotions to follow the path, because in the corporate world, normally you don't have that time and you don't have a lot of acceptance for it on a leadership level, right? Nobody cares if your team is not performing, right? They just want to make sure that you're performing. But I decided for myself that I choose the path to coach the person to see first of all, to evaluate the potential. If the potential is there, it's certainly worth to invest into this person, right? Into this profile. So I was lucky. I never had to get rid of someone in that sense.
But then, Christian, I would also argue on this point that there might be these people who we are talking about.
Yes.
It might not be applicable to everybody. So how do you gauge, like, what do you look for in a person?
Well, there's a precondition. Yeah. There's a precondition for it. It only works both ways if you have the attitude. So this person has to have the attitude to be able to receive constructive feedback, right, and to turn it into actions. If that precondition is not met, of course you don't have a chance. But then it's not about to get rid of the person. So it's about to evaluate what are the strengths of that person. And maybe there's a different path inside the company. Maybe it's just not the right task or responsibility this person is having. So it's also your task as a leader to find a different path.
Clear.
But that often doesn't happen. So often that doesn't happen in the corporate world.
Right. Right. And wow. Yep. Okay.
So also when I relate it maybe to when I'm in a position to hire someone or to build up a team, I never hire for expertise. Well, there are certain areas where you need a level of expertise for sure, but tech tools you can teach, attitude you cannot teach. So always try to really hire for attitude. For that, of course, you would need to have a good interview. You would need to have good questions to really understand in depth: is the potential in the person there? Is this person having the attitude to learn things, right? So skills can be learned, but attitude is something, for me, you have it or you don't have it.
Right. So basically, from what I understand, is like skill versus attitude. It's the attitude that wins all the time.
I would, at most of the times,
Okay.
right? There are certain things.
No, yeah, I mean,
So I don't know. Maybe in our corporate world, it's all so.
when I say
Face it for me. So let's let break it down like that. I think we shouldn't take us too serious in our corporate world. So in our industry, we're in the consumer goods industry. I mean, it's not that we're making the world better, right? So I think there are areas where a doctor who's running an operation,
right.
attitude, of course, attitude matters, but you for sure need the skills to do that, right? In our corporate world, I would say, in a corporate world, most of the skills can be taught, right? But attitude you need.
Right.
Attitude is a precondition. And attitude and there's certain things I look for. For instance, I look for integrity. I look for inner motivation, right? I look for honesty. But I also look for the will to achieve something, right? The motivation to compete, right? The motivation to, I go today to the office and I want to win, right? But in a healthy manner.
Right. And when so again, you also recruit. You recruited quite a lot of amazing people. So you also recruit. What are the things? What is a big no-no for you? And you have recruited quite a lot of people.
Yeah.
There might have been certain mistakes that you have also made while recruiting.
Oh, yeah.
So what are the certain things that you are very mindful of when recruiting somebody?
Oh, it's a really good question. That's a really good question, Aman, because I noticed, so throughout the course of my career, I noticed the bias in me. And it's actually not fair. So it has to do with my heritage, where I come from, right? So I believe so usually you have a cover letter, right? You have a CV and all of that, and I'm happy that the cover letter doesn't matter anymore, right? When I started my career, cover letters they meant a lot, and I was able to realize or to distinguish between people who have been born and raised in a capitalist world, and between the people who came from my place.
Oh wow! You could see.
I could see it just in a cover letter. Yeah,
wow.
I could read it just in a cover letter. So, like I said, certain values like humility. So a person coming from East Germany, for instance, or Eastern Europe, they would never show off. They would never show qualities they don't have, right? And in the Western world, it doesn't matter, right? You're very competitive. You show off and all of that. So, and by default, and that's actually not a quality of mine, I had a bias. I had a certain bias. So when someone in an interview or throughout the application process showed off too much, not showing vulnerability, not reflecting on things that he or she cannot do or might have to learn, it hampered me from hiring from them. But that's a blind spot of mine, to be honest. It's not okay. You need to find a way to filter that, right? So I always favored humility and people who are being humble, and reference to people who try to tell me that they can move the world by their own.
And would you say that on a, maybe I'm sure that you might not have gauged it on a percentage. On a percentage, how much would you say like this decision was correct or wrong? Like how would you rate it? Like majority of your hires.
Relationship.
But
But you're right. So in my first job, all of the hires I did have been a failure. So I did not good for me and I did not good for them, right? I brought them into a position in my first job where they had no fit for, right?
Okay.
Later now in the corporate world, and I don't say I did it all by myself. So I had good leaders, right, who teach me a lot. And I was happy to have them because I acquired a certain skill set of to identify certain potential. And I would say the majority of the people I hired in the corporate world, they're either still in the company, having now at least 2 to 3 promotions after them.
Okay.
So it turned out to be a success for them at least, right? But of course, sometimes, so the thing is, the flaw of interviews or the application processes, you just get a glimpse of a situation, right? It's the real potential you just see hands-on on the job. So it's not so easy, right?
True.
Yeah.
True. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. And so moving on from this topic, you have traveled the world extensively. Would you say that? I mean, come on.
So there's always more. So yes. So let's put it into perspective. Like I said initially, with my family and all the background, and no one had really traveled there. Besides my mom, I took my mom last year for the first time out of Europe. I gave her as a birthday present. We visited Vietnam because she always wanted to see Vietnam. So I would say yes. Probably I traveled the world more than the average person, right? And especially more than my family. But of course, I have friends who travel way more. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not about, again, traveling is not about, for me, it's not. It's not about achievements, right? For me, I really understood, and I learned it first in my first year when I studied in Istanbul, that being with other cultures, with people who speak different languages, is so much more intense, and you learn so much more than, because normally we live in our bubble. We just go ahead with the flow. We have our daily lives, and we do the same things day in and day out. And traveling for me is living. It's really, because it's about gaining new experiences, tasting some new food, like smelling a different sense, right? Learning about how other cultures behave, how they see the world, also how they see the world politically, right? It's so much so giving you so much more perspective. As a German, as an average German, and we think we Germans were known in the world for complaining and not being happy about things, right? I think people in Germany, on average, they live better than over 90% of the world population. And yet, if you talk to a German, they always complain, right? And while traveling, it's you reflect so much of yourself. You reflect how you live, and that you should be thankful for what you have.
And just to put things in perspective, when you say like you haven't traveled as much, could you say how many countries have you been to so far?
No, I think 60, 70.
70 countries.
Yeah.
And you haven't traveled as much. Okay. So out of these countries that you have traveled to, give me an overview. Like what would be an interesting story where you were like, oh wow, this is a new learning?
Yeah. So usually when you're young, you start to travel, you choose countries where you are more fond of, right? You go first to the US, you go to Europe, you go to Italy and all of that.
Right.
Good question, Aman. So just for background, when I was young, I was a big fan of Indiana Jones. Right, I was watching the movies all the time. At that point in time, there was no streaming, so we had to rent the movies of Indiana Jones, and we called them videothek in Germany.
Yes.
So this is something that really triggers me, right? To go to Jordan, to Petra, or I would say the highlight of my travel experience so far has been the Inca Trail or the Machu Picchu in Peru, right? To really the history of people. The history of humankind really triggers me. But you're right. So the first time I had, let's say, a cultural clash indeed has been in Jordan. In Jordan, where I was sitting with in a cab and a cab driver. And noticed that every cab drivers, they were all having a photo of Saddam Hussein in it. Saddam Hussein, right?
Okay.
And if you consume media and you're educated in Central Europe, for instance, of course, Saddam Hussein is a devil, right? And there was for a good reason why the US invaded, or let's say went to Iraq and shut down the government there and all of that. But when I asked him, why are you having Saddam Hussein? Wasn't he torturing you guys? He wasn't doing good for you, right? And he explained, well, that's your view, right? Since Saddam is not there anymore, things are...
Which is also true.
So, but since Saddam is not there, there's a total, so let's say we lost ourselves. There's a vacuum, a political vacuum was established. And the ISIS came and all of that. So there's a political crisis after one another. So there's no stability in this region anymore. And for the first time I had this perspective change, right? And it's worth to talk to people who are in this situation. Second thing is, quite recently, I went to China. I went to Beijing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you would ask the average German what's happening in China, they would tell you about a communist dictatorship, people living in under gray skies, people living in, I don't know, most of them are either in prison, nobody can speak Japanese. So I think part of that maybe might be true, but when I've been there, I was so astonished. So first of all, 60% in Beijing is just electric cars. And when I've been in a hotel in the city center, maybe Beijing is not representative like any other capital of the rest of the country, but I saw people driving their Tesla, going into Victoria's Secrets, then bringing their children to Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then having a chai latte at Starbucks. And that was something that astonished me, because the view I have, or that I get to consume here, is not that, right? So they're living, when you talk to Chinese people there, and I also recently hired a Chinese, right? And that also helped me again to understand their perspective.
The dynamics of the whole world from their perspective.
Exactly. So we shouldn't forget that China, for instance, leveled up 500 million people out of poverty in the last 50 years, right? This is their way. And if they decide they're happy with it, and this is the construct, the political construct, the society they want to live in, it should be fine. Who are we in Europe? It's a lot of hypocrisy, I would say. Who are we in Europe to go there? So, for instance, one of our last foreign ministers to go there and holding up European moral standards, right? So it revealed to me there's so much to gain and experience and perspective if you in these countries and you talk to the people who are affected, right? And I personally, so I haven't been to the countryside for sure, right? And of course, there are a lot of inequalities in China, right? And a lot of miseries for sure.
They're pretty much everywhere across the world.
For sure. But it changed my perspective a lot. And there's a good thing, because in Germany, I think Germany still has this reputation, this made in Germany, this label, which by the way was actually, when it started, a label that German products are inferior, right? Then it became to be
the brand made in Germany
that came after. So the England imposed that made in Germany label to tag inferior German steel products.
Oh wow!
And then throughout time, German products indeed became more innovative and more superior. So made in Germany was standing for a good reputation of quality. Today's world is not like that anymore in Germany. Right? It's fading. That standards is fading. We're not innovative enough. It takes a lot of time in Germany to get approval for something, to build something, to build real estate. And in China, the day I traveled to go to the Chinese Wall to have a hike there. And in the morning, next to my hotel, there was a huge area and there was nothing. There was just earth, right? But there were a couple of hundred Chinese people wearing vests in different colors. And one group would have like trees in their hands. One group they're having like grass in their hand, and one group were having flowers and all of that. Later today, I came back, and there was a park.
What?
There was a park.
They changed.
And when I compare it to Germany, it takes us 15 years to build an airport in Berlin, right? I saw they're so much more efficient and faster, but of course it has a cost, right? They have less individual freedom, for sure. Cameras everywhere, and I think I would like to live there, but I think I have to accept if the people who are living there are fine with that, right? And this is something that what I don't like about our Western world, hypocrisy. That we think we can impose what we believe is good onto all others. And this is something you just learn when you travel.
They just turned a barren land into a park overnight.
And one day.
This is incredible.
Yeah, just about willpower, efficiency, manpower, of course, less regulations. So just one call, do it.
And they will do it.
Yeah. What I also found interesting there is, so they have, of course, a lot of pollution and all of that. So
Beijing was one of the most polluted cities in the world.
Sure. Now, so for instance, in Europe, we have this, for instance, I think, what is it called? Engines and cars who are fueled by gas, for instance. I think 2035. I think we forbid it, right? Okay. So every new car that gets to the market has to be, let's say, sustainable in terms of energy. And in China, they don't have laws for that, right? So everybody's just driving a Tesla or whatever, or BYD or whatever. But what they have, I actually like it, these beautiful rules, because there's too much traffic. So for instance, if you have a car, you have to prove that you have a parking place for it. If you don't have a space where you park your car, you're not allowed to have a car in Beijing. And then if you have a car, 2 days a week, you have to use public transportation.
Like that's mandatory.
Mandatory. And they control it with a camera, right? If you use your car on a day where you're not supposed to use your car, you get a penalty. I would like, of course, it restricts you, right? Coming from Europe, it restricts you so much in your freedom and your freedom of mobility. I wouldn't like it, but well, the Chinese guy just told me, that's the way it is, and this is the way how we control things. I think that we just have to.
I think one thing that really surprised me about Germany was because coming from India, I have a perception that Germans are like very time bound, they love rules, etc. And when I came here, yes, of course, you have German population which is like that, but also there's a hippie side of Germany that a lot of people might not know. So this was very surprising to me because I thought every German would be like 8 o'clock. They're there at 7:59, just waiting for the clock to strike 8.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big opening for me. But then, what is perhaps another country that you would say like it's one of the most interesting places that you've been to, and that kind of shook again your world perspective?
There's so many. So just one. I could talk. Yeah. Okay, let me talk about more. So when I was in Peru, I experienced something interesting besides the Machu Picchu. We came into a political crisis. So there was an indigenous president, and there was a, let's say, how's it called, a coup.
Okay.
Right? They got rid of him, and they
so there was a government change that time.
Yes.
And you were there in Peru that time.
And I was there, and there were a lot of protests and all of that. People died, they destroyed airports. I saw a lot of tanks and army and soldiers. And actually we have been in a lockdown for, I think, nearly 2 weeks in a hotel. We couldn't leave the hotel, we couldn't leave the country. So that also showed me, so Latin America as a whole is very unstable politically. But maybe less politically, I have to say, Africa. Africa, for me, not from a political standpoint, but just I really understood I really experienced how to cherish nature and wildlife there. So in Europe, when you're a child, you're going to zoos, right?
Right.
You're going to
Different
zoos,
animals.
right? Which is you watch the animals, and you don't even realize that the conditions animals are living there are not at all fitting to who they are. So if
Exactly.
you just think of when I met a group of, so I was with a ranger in a park in Namibia, I think, and we were watching a herd of elephants, and he told me that on average an elephant is walking 80 to 90 kilometers a day.
Okay.
This was really for me astonishing. And also we had I had some instances. I nearly died. I met a snake. Yeah, it was a spying cobra in front of us, and there's no antitoxin for it, right? So that also happens in Africa, of course. I would say that you really cherish the wildlife and the nature, and you get more attached to the nature and the planet when you're in Africa. Besides the nice food and everything, but Africa is really a gem. I really liked it. But also India, right? India for me.
You didn't meet any cobra in India.
I didn't meet any cobra, although I have been supposedly in an area with the highest density of king cobras in the world.
I know.
So when you say maybe China has the scale, Africa has the potential, India as well, but also India has the youth, right? So for me, India, that's why I'm investing a lot into an India ETF.
And you're doing the right thing.
When I've been to India, it's also how big this country actually is and how much potential it has. And India did not even start from my point of view, right? You just have it centered maybe in the south of Bangalore. I was a bit, let's say, overwhelmed by New Delhi. And Agra, I was a bit overwhelmed, but it was really...
what was it? It was because of the heat, the population? Or?
Yeah, unfortunately, it was in the summer. Yeah. So heat, smell, volume.
And this was the first time.
It was the first time for me. It was a lot. It was a lot.
We have actually a lot of videos saying that India is not for beginners, and that's for a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
Yeah. But it's, so India is so. After I visited India, I changed a lot of things, right? For instance, I started to do yoga. I try to understand more about Hinduism, right? I'm not a religious person at all, but I think Hinduism is way more than a religion. It's like a lifestyle, right? And it's not putting you into fences.
Correct.
Right? It's giving you a lot of freedom.
Correct.
And it's not making you, let's say, it's not making you starting a conflict in the name of one of your gods. So that's something I just understood there. It's a lot about well-being, religion, culture, maybe even older than we Europeans think and believe and we learn in school.
I think you described Hinduism like perfectly, even better than the Hindus themselves. A lot of them.
Yeah.
But, sorry, go on.
Yeah. So no. India was also very, very intriguing for me, I have to say.
And how did you like the food in India?
So that's a good point. I'm not a foodie person. It's not that I go somewhere to just eat the food. I like Indian food, but it would be not my first choice, but only for stomach reasons.
Okay. Yeah, that comes a little bit hard, but okay.
And only for my own personal well-being. In fact, I have to say the best cuisine in my life was in Peru and Mexico. Yeah.
Well, that's a really good.
But I think maybe it's closer to European food, right? But this is for me what I for instance, Lima in Peru. I think they have the highest amount of Michelin stars restaurants. I don't know why it's just like there, but of course with my personal history in Mexico has a lot of nice food, and also the country is really beautiful. So the south of Mexico is really beautiful. Like visiting the Mayan sites in the Caribbean is exceptional. Also close to, let's say, Guatemala, Belize, and all of that. This area is really exceptional.
And Christian, one question that I had about, because I'm an Indian myself.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that I meet, especially in the West, they usually club India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and all of that together. So what is the perception of India in your mind as compared to these other countries? And would you say, what would you say is the primary difference that you see, and maybe the similarity? Similarity, I think we all know. Maybe the difference that is there in your mind.
Yeah. Do we club them together? Yeah, probably we club them together as people in Asia would club together French, English, and German,
For sure.
right? And so Nordic or Scandinavian people. I don't actually club them to. So I've never been to Pakistan. Unfortunately, I haven't been to Sri Lanka. I think first of all, you can distinguish them by religion, by language, right? And I think what I realized, what was new to me, Delhi in the north of India is like quite Muslim, right? So you see the difference when you're north of India and going to Bangalore, for instance, in the south. You notice a difference. You notice
In the
a
way the
difference.
people look.
And I would never say that we club together Pakistan and India. So for us, in our European mind, Pakistan is part of, let's say, more like tending to Middle East, like leaning to Middle East more.
Okay.
Sri Lanka, no, I don't know why. It's a nice travel destination, but I would never
club it with India.
No,
Okay.
no. And what is India? Why do we? Like I said, India has the strongest potential, and I think the future belongs to you guys, right? You're such a big country. You have the highest population on earth. And I don't know how many people in India are below 30, 50%, below 30, I don't know. So maybe more.
Last I checked, it was average age was somewhere close to 26, 27.
So it is just crazy, right? Where the Western world is aging and aging and aging. So the future belongs to you. And what I see just when I think back, so when I think back to my profession and my corporate life, is every time I get in touch with someone from India or hire someone from India, there are a couple of things I can be assured of. Well, this person is highly dedicated. This person goes the extra mile, which is not necessarily, let's say, needed or necessarily a good thing. But I could really see that the people who are educated in India and made it from India then to Europe and go to the big corporate with a global scale, they have a high sense of competition, right? And a high sense of professionalism. A professionalism that is what I see is lacking in the people who come from Europe, especially the younger generation. I don't want to blame the younger generation, but I don't see the hunger anymore, right? People from India, so when you look at these, let's say, big tech companies, right? And who is leading these companies? So more and more they're led by Indian migrants or people with Indian heritage. You see a lot of influence coming from India, right? So India could be the next. So what Italy is for food in the world, India could be for innovation in the future, right? And also for politics. There's something I see is why I think India could try to take more influence, like Modi
in politics. Yeah, Modi
could be. I don't know. It's not the way, right? It's not the way of India to take a strong stance and to put a lot of barriers. So how I sense the Indian politics is more like we talk to everyone. We want to be okay with everyone, right? But we don't want to put up fences. I mean, you even when I read correctly, I think you even now had started again relations with Beijing. You improved your relations and all of that. Correct. So I think it's a value for sure, right? But there will be a point in time where you have to take an opinion. Pick sides, but you have to take an influence, right? You have to take influence on something, right? Because you will be so big and so important that you can change the world, right? Simply.
I think with the current foreign position that we have with Foreign Minister Jaishankar in place, I think it is starting to happen. But compared to last 10 years, right now it's been amazing. It's a really long way that we have come along. But what you mentioned, yes, I do understand that from one point it might look that yes, we are trying to be friends with everybody and not commit to anyone and stuff like that, and not put our fences up. But there is definitely a strategy around it, and eventually, because all of a sudden if we change our stance, or all of a sudden people will not accept us the way, that aggressive.
You have time for it. You have time for it. Let China do. and then
we'll see where it goes from
then
there.
you will certainly have more talent probably.
Christian, you have read quite a lot of books.
Yeah.
What are a few books that you would recommend?
One book that pops up immediately in my mind.
Top three. Let's make it top three. Top three books.
So the first one would be The Charisma Secret. The second would be, it just comes to my mind, would probably be How to Influence. Third one would be, I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek, so third one would be
Start with the why.
No, Eaters Eat Last.
That's a very good one.
Yeah. The Charisma one I put first because it helps me a lot. I read it in my sabbatical, and it helps me a lot how I approach the job today and how I approach stressful situations. So in that book, you learn how to cope with toxic situations, toxic people, and how you protect yourself from it. And there are certain methods you learn and tools, right? Like visualization. I was never believing in visualization. For me, it was just
we had the discussion. Yes.
Yeah, I was never believing in it, but the first chapter they really catch me by simply saying that you can manipulate yourself with feelings and visuals you put into your mind, right? And the example they gave me is, or the book suggests is, everybody knows this. If you are watching a horror movie or a thriller that really excites you, and later on you're supposed to go to the bathroom in the dark alone by yourself, right? And then everybody knows this moment, should I look into the mirror or not, right? And it's not real. It's not real. But the movie plays the image in your head, and the image in your head triggered certain hormones, right, in your brain chemistry, right? And then I understood, yeah, there is a point. And until today, I'm using it. So when there is, let's say I need to go to the stage or I have a big presentation, I use these techniques to prepare myself to put my mind into the right state.
So that concludes the first part of our conversation. I hope you enjoyed the video. Do comment and let us know what was your favorite part or what we could have probably improved. Do like and hit the subscribe button for the next time we upload the video. On that note, I'll see you again. Sayonara. Until next time.